Okay, and welcome to episode 6 of the Sonic Visions podcast. We are joined, of course, by our legendary guests, returning guests, Ko and Lana. How are you guys doing?
Doing okay. Doing all
Doing
right, you
good.
know.
Nice, nice, yeah. And we'll see as we go along. We might have some other guests, as we usually do. People kind of pop in and pop out, but happy to have you guys here. I want to start off the whole episode today. We have a lot of topics here. We'll see how much we can get through, but I want to start it off with kind of what I'd like to call Lana's Land, which is kind of her segment where she kind of discusses audio and what's exciting to her. And I think this goes well with our kind of the topic we typically start off with, which is like gear we're interested in and things we're looking forward to, things we're excited about now. So Lana, take it away. What are you excited about right now?
I am very excited about, I went to my local hi-fi shop and I just demoed, I think, 20 speakers. And I fell really madly in love with the Klipsch series. So I bought myself a Klipsch Heresy 4. And when I move to a new house, I'll also be picking up a Klipsch Forte 4. So yeah, the thing is, I was always more of a headphone person, so I started out with speakers, but like growing up, my parents had such really intense sleeping schedules. My mother worked night shift, my father would come home and go to sleep immediately, so I would always get yelled at for using speakers. So I guess I just adapted. I learned to love headphones, and I never really thought that I could really make them work too much in the current space I am in, but like I think it's really doable. And yeah, I just feel like really excited that I'm going to get my first like big expensive pair of speakers, and it does make me wonder how much the headphones are gonna be used from now on, but I'd like to think that I'll still have a use case for them, and, like, I hope that I'm gonna still enjoy the headphones that I do have. So yeah, a bit of an existential audiophile crisis there. You know, when you work so hard to reach headphone endgame and then you reach it and then you want to go to speakers and then you start questioning if if headphone endgame was worth it or not. But like we'll see.
Yeah, like I mean, adding to that like question you had about, now that I have speakers, when can I use headphones? I found that there are some genres of music that I find are stronger in headphones, like like EDM, where the intimacy headphones provide, I think, is an advantage. But when you listen to vocals and classical and that sort of thing, then speakers, obviously. I mean, generally speakers are better than headphones, of course. But there are times when I do like that intimacy, and headphones do provide that very well.
True, very true. And I guess I will come to see how well Klipsch in particular does with like classical, for example. Um some people say they do it fine. Some people say it's not a genre that Klipsch or horns in general do very well. So like I guess I'll find that out, but
I mean, in my experience, it wasn't my cup of tea, but
mhm,
I think that when you have, I think like it's so strong with vocals and saxophone and that sort of thing
yeah.
that I could live with the compromise personally. Like I could live with it. I could live with it. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my local hi-fi store is gonna get a bunch of Focal speakers in a few weeks.
Mm.
So they invited me. It's actually funny because I went in there and I just started roasting their entire setup, but like I was trying to be helpful, and I feel like the guy just gave me lots of respect for it. I just I came in and I started talking about their lack of room treatment and placement and
and
how
the
they need.
lack of MQA certified equipment.
They recommended me Cobas, so no one was trying to recommend me MQA
It's pretty
at
funny.
least. But yeah, like I heard the Klipsch Cornwalls, which are
Mm.
legendary, but they were in this tiny room with no room treatment. And I stopped and I turned around to the guy and I said, these sound kind of like $200 Best Buy speakers because the room is not optimized for these. And he looked at me and he was like, you know what? You're right. They just don't know where to put them because, they're big speakers and they're like, yeah, we're trying to figure out where to put them. And
Yeah. I mean, clips are really picky, like the horns. They're really picky with room treatment and room placement. You have to toe them in very carefully to get the proper image, to get that proper sound. But once you do, the rewards are you just get a lot of reward. It's fantastic. And of course, if you get clips, you have to tube them. And I know that you're delving into that too. So that's going to be another financial and hobby related, I guess, rabbit hole. So
well,
have fun with that.
luckily I have tubes that'll work with Klipsch. I believe LTA speaker amps are not that powerful. And they often show with Klipsch speakers because they're just super easy to drive. I heard them with
Mm.
the Prima Lunas. I will
Mm.
say, another speaker that I was really excited to hear was the Dynaudio Special 40, and then there was the Dynaudio Heritage, I believe it's called, which I think was a $7,000 plus speaker.
Oh, how is Dynaudio?
So here's the thing. It was all on Macintosh, and no hate, I do not mean to disrespect Macintosh, but most of the things that I heard at my local hi-fi store were on Macintosh. A lot of the
Got it.
clips a lot of the clip stuff was on Prima Lunas, and no lie, it sounded beautiful.
Mm.
I don't know if I am looking to buy a Prima Luna, but let's say I wouldn't be opposed to owning one. And everything that I heard on Macintosh, I was not a fan of. So I'm trying to figure out if Macintosh was the Achilles heel or if the speakers just weren't very good. I don't
This is
know.
something I have a bone to pick with a lot of showrooms. So when you're a Macintosh dealer, you sort of go full whack into Macintosh because the margins on them are fantastic. And if you become a good Macintosh dealer, then that opens you up to Sonos Faber and Audio Research and great brands. But the downside is that they sort of feature Macintosh everywhere. So all the other brands of speakers they sell are piped through Macintosh, and Macintosh has this signature, has this house sound that doesn't necessarily synergize well with a bunch of different speakers, and it doesn't really give them a fair chance, I think. So when you listen to stuff like Dynaudio and Macintosh, I wonder that maybe your first experience with Dynaudio wasn't fair. And honestly, I'm not like blaming you at all. I'm blaming the dealer because the dealer really shouldn't just put Macintosh in everything. It's like applying honey on everything. It may
Yeah,
work with some things, but it's not going to work with others.
one thing that I noticed on all the Macintosh stacks was things sounded kind of boomy and
Mm,
kind of warm,
yep.
just warm and
Mm.
boomy and very like thick syrupy. Yeah, that's the word, like thick, like molasses and syrupy. So yeah, I was sitting there just chilling out with the like $8,000 bookshelves and the special 40s, which I've been wanting to hear for ages. But they all had this inherent similarity going from stack to stack because it was Macintosh. And once again, I'm not hating on Macintosh. It just felt, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it, but like if you have a particular amp and you try uh using different things with it, it sort of adds a personality to all of the things that kind of makes
Yep.
them unified, even though they're not cohesive at all if you just use them on other equipment. So there was a certain something something in all the things that I heard on Macintosh where I could go from one setup to another and go like, "Yep, that's Macintosh," and it's not really vibing with me. So that was my experience.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's just yeah. I think I'm just gonna put that down to the fact it was all Macintosh.
Yeah. Sorry, Macintosh. Like, I don't mean to come off as a hater. Really, I think the stuff just looks really cool. Honestly, I dig the green aesthetic with the heavy metal
Oh,
gothic
you like the aesthetic?
text. I think it looks very
Hmm.
Hot Topic circa 2006.
That's not a compliment,
Uh, eh,
is it?
I don't know. Like, it has a certain whether it's a compliment or not can totally depend on the mood and the vibe. But yeah, I think they look alright.
Hmm.
Kind of look like, yeah, like it looks like something that could have been sold in Hot Topic over a decade ago. I think it's the font and the green LEDs. Just give it sort of a Halloween vibe to me.
Ah, true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Macintosh is an interesting brand. I mean, I don't dislike the house sound, and it does work well. I mean, obviously with their own speakers and with Plymouth Faber speakers, it works well too because they're just rubbing off each other. But I found that the aesthetic of the Macintosh puts me off the brand completely. I just don't care for it. Like even if the sound to me is okay, the aesthetic just puts me right in the no camp. So I mean, I do appreciate what they do, but I'm not a hater, and I know you're not a hater. It's just the sound just doesn't work for our tastes. But I'm curious on what you think on other brands if you do get a chance to demo other brands.
I'll go back and I'll demo Focal speakers, but I do worry that he's gonna put them on Macintosh as
Oh,
well.
that's a waste. Uh,
Nice. I do like the aesthetic of Macintosh as well. Um, I heard their newest headphone tube amp and wasn't very impressed with the build quality or the sound. But I know there's some people that love Macintosh, so I'm definitely not hating either. So I guess, hey, I guess it depends on which specific Macintosh product you're talking about as well. And by the way, Flux just joined us. Flux, how's it going? Oh, you might not be there. Uh,
Here.
so, oh, you're there. Oh yeah, Flux, how's it going?
Yeah. Doing okay. Sorry, I was just waiting for a proper moment to uh enter. I'm doing all right. I've been actually demoing some tubes as of late, so that's been kind of like my passive audio related activity instead of interacting on Discord as of late, or instead of demoing like one headphone versus another, doing EQ stuff. I'm like strictly the only thing I'm working on right now is doing some rectifier tube analysis with
Nice.
some of the like 274B and their similar competitors in the space. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. I've been trying to keep up with all of the happenings in terms of like audio news, but the I guess the only thing I can announce with my appearance on the podcast is that soon in about a week there's going to be a can jam in Southern California, and it looks like right now that I should be able to attend. So there's my intro.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to what comes out of Can Jam. Ko, what are you excited about currently? Obviously, we'll have the Co's Corner at the end, but anything that's exciting right now?
Sure. Well, I'm excited to one day finally get out of this COVID. I guess
Seriously,
audio
yeah.
related. Yeah. Audio related. Let's see. I have about 4 topics, but this would be for Coast Corner, I guess. Yeah. I got like new products in, which is great. I got a new tube amplifier that I upgraded. It's the first upgrade I got since 2014. That's pretty cool. That Elysian X being blown my mind. BGGR Melee just came in. That's really, really cool. And what else? Oh yeah, I've been using the Shandling M30 with the Suzavara. That's a really interesting combo, which I'd love to talk about later. For future products, yeah, I mean, we've got the, let's see, the next couple of weeks. Honestly, nothing comes to mind. I think right now, there's going to be there may be a lot of announcements coming closer to Can Jam. I know there are a few products which may be revealed at Can Jam or near Can Jam, so just watch out for that.
Nice.
I know of one I'm looking out for.
What's that?
Looking to see what Odyssey is doing.
LCD
Indeed.
5.
I don't know. I have no honest clue.
Well, all
but
I want from Odyssey is a 250 gram LCD4. Is that so much? Is that so hard to ask for? That can be
I
driven.
mean,
Well,
some
that
would
can be
say you
driven
can
from-
get that in the i4.
I had the i4. I loved it a lot, but it needed EQ. So the other thing, like with Odyssey, is that you need to put it. You have to see with the i4, you have to use it with Cipher. Otherwise, I found it's just crap. And then with a lot of the LCD headphones, I have to use it with like their own reveal EQ. Otherwise, it just sounds completely off to me. So what I did ask Sankar like a number of years ago, I think 2 years ago, I said, wouldn't it be great if all your headphones actually sounded good, like with EQ out of the box, instead of having to go through all of these different DSPs? And wouldn't it be great if we could just, if you could have like an LCD1 form factor with LCD4 tech with the EQ built in? And yeah, I mean, he's obviously really busy working on other stuff, but that's sort of my dream headphones. Something like the LCD1 that's just comfortable, has that LCD4 tech, and already has EQ in it.
I'm
Well,
sure that they're. Oh, sorry, listener. Go ahead.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna say, well, what do we think about that boom bang design demo page that was posted and then removed?
So
If it's lighter, sure.
it seems that what they've gone for is an even more agreeable weight distribution
Mhm.
over a strap and what I would hope is a lighter chassis around the drivers, and it seems that they've done that, but with a planar magnetic that I'm assuming that the LCD5, whenever it comes around, is going to be, you aren't going to get around having 4 magnets if it is going to be a double-sided planar magnetic driver. Like, the weight of those magnets is inevitable.
Yeah, but I think that what you're talking about, like that just single piece of aluminum, like in the middle of the headphone, that would probably be the spot that they reduce the actual weight, and then go for a different weight distribution with the overall chassis.
Yeah, it seems to me that there's room to go down with the weight, and I mean, Hi-Fi Man is doing it obviously very well. Is it the case that the LCD drivers themselves are much heavier than Hi-Fi Man drivers?
I think it has to do with each company's goals that they have in mind and what they are willing to invest in sonically. So you see that with Odyssey, they tend to boast having, I think on the LCD4, is it 1 or 1.5?
I think it's 1.5 Tesla.
Yeah. So, and in the case of Hi-Fi Man, what you hear about as of late is we're implementing the stealth magnet system into, or the stealth magnetic structure into the headphones. And
Well,
you see,
also with Hyphaman is that they're pushing this Bluetooth dongle pretty hard, even for that $5,000 HER10B.
I
wouldn't be surprised
and
if
it's
they
also
push that.
it's also in the budget range too.
Yeah. I
with
wouldn't
the
be
Deva.
surprised if that Bluetooth thing becomes like a thing for all the headphones into the future.
Well, I think it speaks to kind of what Flux is saying about each manufacturer's goals. I mean, Fang has made it
Exactly, yeah.
clear that he thinks wireless is the future, so
Yeah.
that's kind of where they're going to be targeting.
But also that there is no mention of Tesla regarding the driver assembly. There is no listed specification from Hi-Fi Man. So I think that kind of tells you what each company is kind of going for in their directions.
Right. By the way, Zakitor has joined us as well. How's it going, Zach? He might not be there. Yeah, so it's interesting to see kind of what Odyssey does with this headphone, this supposed newly designed headphone. Zach, we can't hear you.
Sorry, man. I'm just grabbing a coffee upstairs. I'll be down in a minute.
Sure, no problem. It looks, to me, I like the design, and yeah, if they can get the weight down, I think that would be great. One thing I'm just curious about, I wanted to mention, since we're talking about kind of Odyssey drivers, I guess planers, is it seems like, is it the case that only the Abyss TC has that kind of mono magnet that where it's like a single piece and then they cut slits into it, or are there other companies that have planar headphones with a similar design?
That might be a question potentially for Abyss to answer. As much as I wish I could, as I could answer, I think only they would know if they're the only ones doing it, and if they aren't marketing it, then I wonder if they are.
Right. Because it seems like most other planar designs are based on kind of bar magnets, either one-sided or two-sided, but bars.
Actually,
regardless.
I got a question for you guys. I've been thinking about Abyss's future as a headphone company and what they're going to do for future flagships. So if you look at Diana, that is a typical headphone system where you just have a clamp and it clamps onto your ears. With the 1266, it just hangs and it sort of uses that gap between your ears to create that sense of that stage. I guess my question would be, do you think Abyss would keep the 1266 form factor and just iterate it going on, or would they shift to something more portable, conventional like the Abyss Diana and try and get it closer to a 1266 sound?
May I comment?
Please?
I feel as though even the Diana is not all that conventional in comparison to other conventional headphones. I think Abyss tries to think outside of the box with their designs, and it makes people really remember them. I remember the first time I saw a 1266 and I put it on. I said to myself, I am never going to buy this thing. It is atrocious and it looks weird. It looks weird as hell. But you know what? I always remembered it for years. For years. It literally just showed up in my dreams. It haunted me. I was like, "Ugh, just that design." So maybe just going out on a limb, maybe Abyss likes being kind of the weirdos of the headphone designers, you know? They they're very Avant-garde. Yes, that is the word, avant-garde. And they might tone that down in the future, but I think that really uh like makes a mark with people, them being very avant-garde and unforgettable, I guess.
Thank you. Interesting.
How long
I
was the gap? Oh, sorry.
sorry, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, how long was the gap between you first like hearing the Abyss and having that reaction of "I will never buy this," like until you ended up buying it? Like, how long was that?
Well, I first heard the original in New York, and I barely paid any mind to it. I was like, okay, I want to look at focals because focals were pretty. And so I ended up buying focals, and then just more iterations of the 1266 kept coming out, and I have not heard them. And then I got a demo unit from the cable company, and initially, I'm just gonna be honest, like I had a really sub subpar DAC in my chain, which was just really the bottleneck. So I was using my GSX Mini with like a Shitmodius. No lie, it was what I had on hand. And I was like, this does not sound that good. Okay. Then luckily I had a head-fi meet, so I stuck that onto a Bracasti M3 with the because Bracasti M3 can be bought with a headphone for an additional $500. And I
Mhm.
was like, wow. So it doesn't just sound like glare and sharpness and shoutiness. I was like, now I really want this thing.
Got
And
it.
then I heard it on tubes at the same meet, and then I cried in front of a bunch of grown men.
And that was the LTA?
Yeah, that was the LTA. So I cried, and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, it just sounds really pretty." And that's how I ended up buying it.
Hell yeah.
I felt like Linus in that moment. I am I was like, I'm channeling my inner Linus right now. Because he said he wouldn't cry, and then he cried. So I
Mhm.
felt like I was channeling my inner Linus.
Yeah.
Yeah, the TC is incredible. Yeah, I think it's probably the best headphone I've ever heard. I'm just getting into tubes now, so things are changing for me. But from my memory, the TC is really amazing in so many metrics. And I think Lana, you're the only one. Oh no, maybe you or I think Humble has it. Humble or Mabuse or somebody has it.
Humble
Uh,
owns one, but I don't think he has it on hand right now.
okay, yeah.
I think
But
it's in transit at the moment.
Got it.
I've compared it on multiple systems to other kind of flagship headphones, to Susvara, to Solitaire P, and then lesser or kind of headphones lower down the kind of price scale like Aria, and obviously a whole bunch of dynamics. And to me, it's probably the most resolving, detailed headphone I've ever heard. Biggest soundstage, best layering. Uh, it's just and then really impressive bass. So it's an incredible headphone, I think. And obviously there's downsides with the fit, and I know Lana, you're the fit's good for you. I know a lot of people complain about the fit, the weight, but it's amazing. And I'm actually also talking to Connor here in the Voice General, and I think the DMS mentioned that he does think that Abyss is the only one to do the monolithic magnet. So I think that might be one of the secrets of the why Abyss sounds so good, and nobody else is doing that. I wish somebody else would do that.
Or maybe why it sounds so unique and why it is uniquely superior in particular aspects for so many fans.
Right.
I don't think it's the driver though. I think it's the position. I don't think it's the physical driver. I think it's the physical position of the driver. There's not many headphones that allow you to have the kind of air gap spacing that Abyss achieves with its like weird layout other than the one that Ruckus made, the Bori, the way they can kind of get the pads off your ear a bit, but it's like the Abyss is the only one where they can like actually put a gap, like an air gap behind your ear pretty easily.
Yeah, I
That'll
would say that's not only exhibited in the Diana, but also the 1266. Both the stock pads, the V2 Diana pads, and then also the ones that DMS handmade. All of them exhibited a specific air gap that was like integral to the tuning of the bass relative to your mids and treble.
Yeah, I think that's a really unique feature of the brand. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think you're definitely onto something there, Zach. I was testing my my LCD-X with new pads versus a friend's old LCD-X with the memory foam pads, and the driver distance you get with those memory foam pads, because they like just don't crush at all. It definitely made the soundstage like a lot further from the head in all directions. Shame about the tuning.
I can add on to that. When I had the Empyrean, at first I really gravitated towards the leather pads because it gave this more closed-in, intense sound. But later on, I stuck the Alcantara pads on, and I was just amazed at how open it sounded. There were times when the Empyrean with Alcantara pads sounded like it didn't have pads on at all. It just sounded like, I don't want to say like a two-channel like speaker system, but there were times with the Alcantara pads where I closed my eyes and it just felt like the pads disappeared. Now, definitely, I found the rest of the tuning to be a bit of a detriment in certain areas, but the openness was just astounding, really. So I do miss that about the Empyreans. Um, I don't know how the new ones are, the Elites. I think the pads actually look a bit smaller, I think. But yeah, I wonder if they have that same sort of open spaciousness or not.
I do wonder about that as well, because I believe it might be breaking news for this this podcast, but Meze is pulled out of SoCal Can Jam.
Oh,
shoot.
that's the company you were talking about earlier?
No.
Interesting.
No, that was actually not, listener, but
Oh, sorry.
so apparently, they could not find a qualified enough replacement team to work the booth, and I think they were also just kind of weighing out like how much the cost is to continue to be there when it is a risk on themselves because they cannot attend because of the pandemic.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
And is that just for the most recent one for SoCal?
Yeah, just for
Got it.
SoCal. I mean, as much as I don't want to turn this into the pandemic podcast, so I think Can Jam New York is still far enough away for things to either continue or discontinue, and just halt and continue course with bailing out of events just for personal safety.
Just keep in mind that YouTube may or may not flag the video if you have pandemic talk.
Well,
All right. Fair
if it's
enough.
only a news update.
Yeah, they can't get you up for that. Hopefully.
Zach, you had the Abyss. I don't know if you had the TC model or an OG model, but what were your thoughts versus your HD800?
I owned the OG for a couple of years, I think, and then I ended up borrowing a TC and a CC when they came out. I think my listening habits changed a bit. I sort of tried to start heading towards speakers, so I started to value less what the Abyss did that I found so remarkable. Like, I mean, it's the only headphone that I found had, at the time, particularly before Susvara, had this like sub bass, like really deep bass. And when I started my kind of like audio journey, I really valued bass above a lot of other stuff. And the OG Abyss had a lot of problems with its initial tuning. It had a pretty present mid-range suck out. It had lower treble information missing because of the huge sub bass. That was improved in the CC, and then again in the TC, they managed to make improvements. But I don't know. I think I just kind of went away with the ergonomics being too frustrating. You know, it wasn't the kind of headphone I couldn't really do hour and hour sessions with it. Not because of the weight, but more just because, you know, you can't lie down with it. You can't move around much. It was, you know, ergonomically, it's not a fantastic headphone. But the bass is killer. And then I heard Susvara, and I thought, well, the bass is basically the like similar sort of tier, I reckon, on the Susvara. For detail, I never really got that excited about any of the Abyss. I think the lower mids still are not the most resolving in any headphone. I think it's missing a bit of a layer there, in my opinion. I have heard them on multiple headphones and literally kilobuck systems, like $100,000 systems, and yeah, I don't know. Just for me, I don't think it is the most resolving cam, but it is really fun. The bass response is fantastic. The highs really do shimmer. The mid range is tuned to be really pleasant, but I wouldn't say it's a reference or a highly accurate headphone. But still, it's top tier for what it does. And it definitely changes. It's a bit of a chameleon depending on, you know, what you put in front of it as well. It scales quite well, especially for a planar headphone, because that can't be said for a lot of the other planar brands. I wouldn't go too crazy with an Audi's LCD3 spending, you know, $20,000 on a front end to it, because I think you'd be throwing, you know, good money after bad.
Unless
Anyway.
you got a good headphone that's synergized with it after the fact.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But yeah, so at the moment, I don't have Abyss anymore. I sold it. I never bit the bullet on the TC or the Susvara, and then I went full send on speakers and my listening habits have changed so much when I had a space where I could listen to speakers more. I think before I was forced into headphones, and that's why I looked at stuff like the Abyss and Susvara and stuff, because, you know, I couldn't crank it up at, you know, 9 in the evening and have to, you know, worry about my partner or the neighbors and stuff, you know. So
Right.
headphones made a lot of sense. But then when I could start going to speakers, I just stopped caring about high end headphones almost entirely. Like I'm interested, and I'm really excited to hear the Stealth soon and the Elite, because I was not a fan of the Mezzi, like the previous MP or whatever that came out. But yeah, no, I'm still keen to follow the hobby and headphone space, because I think that's where most of our interests lie, and I'm sort of trying to just keep involved in it. But it's just, yeah, the drive for new headphones for me has just died completely now that I can run speakers like 24/7.
Yeah, to add on to that, I really, I don't know how I'm going to feel about my Abyss once my Klipsch heresy is gonna be here. But even then, when I move houses, I fully intend to get a Klipsch Forte, and um, honestly, I'm keeping my Abyss for one reason, because if I decide to sell it, that'll be Klipsch Forte money right there. So I'm kind of keeping it.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
It's a
yeah,
deposit, really. It's a
Yeah,
deposit.
yeah.
because here's my thing. If I were to sell the Abyss now, I would totally spend it on other audio gizmos. Like I would really love more tube amps. So every time I look at the Abyss on my shelf and I think, I
Mm.
could really use a Klipsch Forte in the future, I'm like, yeah, I can just sell one of you, the Abyss in particular, and that'll be Klipsch Forte money right there.
Good way to think about that.
So that kind of leads nicely into the next topic and kind of question about speakers. I think we kind of did in the past talk about speakers versus headphones and that kind of thing. So, we can get into that or put that aside. But specifically, when it comes to speakers and big speakers, is it the case that they generally sound huge? Because we had a discussion, and Tron was involved in this, and one of his thoughts was that headphones tend to sound sometimes more accurate than even speakers, because big speakers can sometimes, and I apologize to Tron if I'm mischaracterizing his position, but big speakers tend to sound huge. You know, the instruments are gigantic, a piano's the size of a room, that kind of thing. So is it the case that big speakers tend to sound unrealistically big, or is it more the type of speaker or the quality of the speaker that dictates whether or not they can sound real or natural in terms of their imaging?
So if you don't mind, I'd like to go first on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first it comes down to one, how well does your speaker scale with the amplifier and downstream components? Some speakers don't need a lot to run really well. Some take on the characteristics of the gear and they really need some good stuff for them to open up. So that sort of depends. But assuming that all those variables are constant, then I would say it's not true that large speakers would sound, in terms of, let's say, soundstage, large or overly grand, because a good speaker should be able to grow and contract with the music, and it shouldn't have this dominating signature enveloping everything. It should be able to take on the form of the music and just stick with that. So I've felt that there are some speakers out there which do have this general signature, so which can interfere with my music or my listening habits. So an example would be like folk. So I demoed Focal Grande Utopia, it was Evo, and that one had a lot of sound stage, and that beryllium shimmer and the articulation, the treble, sort of threw me off for a lot of music, and it became a bit distracting. And the soundstage was also a bit larger than I felt the music warranted. But then when I moved on to different speakers like Wilson's, I felt those I just really adapted well to the music and sounded more natural. And there wasn't any there. It just didn't take a position. It just did what was supposed to do, and it didn't sound overly bright. It didn't sound overly bassy. It just sounded as it's supposed to. So if you have a good speaker and you have good components, there shouldn't be, you shouldn't have this sauce that's flavoring and dominating the flavor. Everything should just sound as it should if you have good quality components.
If I might comment on that, more so from the original question, my answer is pretty simple, I guess. If both a bookshelf and a floor stander are appropriately placed, and you are in a good, ideal, or close to ideal listening position, then I think what you will discover is that there's a difference between sound stage in a speaker and head stage in a headphone. And you might find certain head stages advantageous over a sound stage if the source material is recorded in a particular way, either to benefit one or the other.
Right. Okay, fair enough. The next question is, what is the bottleneck of your system?
Hold on, before people answer, what are you referring to? Speakers, headphones, or IEMs?
So any chain that you have, it could be portable, it could be speakers, could be headphones, any chain that you have, any audio chain. Let's say, for example, your main chain, the chain that you prefer, that you listen to the most, your favorite, your choice. What is the bottleneck in that system in your eyes?
Who wants to go first?
I will go first gladly because I already know my answer. It's fairly simple. My bottleneck is my preamp for my speaker system. So for context, I have a Dangerous Music Convert 2. I have a Slagle TVC. It's a transformer volume control. And I have a Bryston 4B cubed. And I can tell you right now, the bottleneck in that, even by me just saying it, it's like, oh yeah, the preamp, the passive pre, that's the bottleneck. So I'm looking to get an auto former. I'm looking to get some Elna or Elma, I forget. but there are
My EMEA
some
or
like
something like that.
I was gonna say, has
Yeah.
Fami talked you into the EMEA or?
Yeah. So I'm looking at a balanced autoformer setup, and that is going to be my next thing that I get. So
What
I just
wiring are you gonna get? Silver or copper?
I'm probably going to do copper, mainly because of the tuning in the system right now. I need copper right now, as opposed to benefiting from silver later.
Have a chat to Branko because he reckons the silver EMEA is actually warmer. I think he said than the copper one. Which is
Interesting.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense either to me, but he said that, so I'd have a chat to him. And he's owned. I think he owned both at one stage.
Okay.
Who's next on the what's wrong with your gear? I think we
I'll
can do
go-
it in order because it looks like in a decent order. So Ko should go.
Yeah, I'll go next. So I'll stick with my speaker system because I've recently upgraded my headphone IEM and my tube rigs. I think those are covered. But my speaker system, yeah, that's a lot of bottlenecks there. So my amplifier is a Class AB amplifier. It's like a mid-range parasound amp. I feel that could be better. I also feel that my preamp, I have the cheapest preamp parasound cells, and the DAC is like the size of my hand. It's just a module that's like crammed into the preamp. So I mean, any aspect could be upgraded. I think the DAC is probably the weakest. It could also, I mean, quite frankly, I could definitely benefit from a great preamp too, but I think the DAC is a huge limitation. So I've been entertaining the thought of upgrading the DAC, and figuring out the synergy of what DAC works with the speakers is a challenge because there's a lot of options in the market. You've got the Hollow May, which everybody loves, everyone and their grandma loves. You've got all of the shit gear. You've got what's the other one? You got the no, what's the company that's got it's Denafrips. You got Denafrips. You got
Yeah, I mean-
Delta. You got Delta Sigma. You got all these different options. So
Or-
what I've been thinking of, what I've been thinking of recently is because shit has just refreshed the Yggdrasil line with 3 different models. I've been looking into that, and I think I may just YOLO the less is more model, which I think has
Yeah.
2 chips. Yeah. So that sounds interesting to me. So that may be the first upgrade I do to the system.
I am very curious to hear a Yggdrasil Analog 2. I'm really looking forward to that. Because I owned a V1 for the longest time, and I have a lot of like early in the hobby memories of like particular instances when like an album really resonated with me, or when I would celebrate, that would be the speaker DAC. Like I would use it for different events and things. So like I have a lot of sentimental value with the Yggdrasil V1. So I am interested to see that with the SoCal Can Jam. I'm interested to see if anybody has an Yggdrasil, if it's an A2, and I do want to be able to like demo it against.
Have you found there's a difference in your appreciation of the Yggdrasil on headphones and between headphones and speakers?
Oh, it's much better to me for a headphone system. I feel that the staging issues are extremely present on speakers. When I used it in my speaker system, I actually thought something was wrong when I had it in a good position. So I would definitely say a headphone system, and it would have to go with a leaner tube amp, in my opinion, or something that has some kind of DSP to enhance stage. I think that would probably be a good route for the Yggdrasil. At least based on the A1.
Interesting. Thank you for the advice.
Yeah.
Lana, what would you say is the bottleneck in your current chain?
Um, I don't know if I have a bottleneck in my headphone chain right now because typically I try to sell off anything that is a bottleneck or fix whatever issue is the bottleneck. I would say in my headphone chain, not having a different flavor of tube is something that I miss. My LTA tube amp, like I love it to bits, but I would like something secondary, something more euphonic and rich. Uh, like I had a Felix amp, but I sold it. I actually sold it to someone in the server. So I would like a second tube. I think my DAC isn't a bottleneck at all. I love my Bricasti. Everyone knows that I love my Bricasti because I'm always Bricasti is like that child that parents always talk about. Like I feel like I could just sit here and talk about my love for my Bricasti, but yeah, as far as speakers. I'm not gonna know what my bottleneck there is until my Heresy arrives. I'm gonna move my LTA and my Bricasti to the speaker room and kind of move all my headphones in there as well. So at this point, I guess room treatment because I haven't bought any yet.
Hmm.
And I'm also terrified that I won't know how to treat a room properly. Like, I do know my dad taught me how to treat a room, but I just keep overthinking that, I'm gonna be really OCD about room treatment and speaker placement, and I'm gonna be moving things like half an inch left or right until it's perfect.
Room treatment is like the one part of the audiophile sphere where you can spend next to nothing and get professional like sound results.
True. I actually saw a YouTube video on how to make, acoustic panels out of uh towels. Like this guy went to a thrift store and bought a bunch of towels and he just turned them into panels.
Mm, that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
or you could do blankets, thicker blankets, or moving blankets. If you decide to create a room within the room that it exists in, that's one of the cheapest ways to like create a um, dead space.
Mm.
But be sure you don't want to like over dampen the room too. You want a little bit of
Oh, right, yeah.
echo, yeah.
Very, very particular people want to put up like 10 layers of like 70-pound weight moving blankets.
There's that Ultra Touch recycled denim, which is interesting because if you use that material, you don't need like a mask or gloves or anything. Like it's non irritating. So that's one I've seen as well being used for panels.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I was actually
interesting.
looking into that. That looks pretty cool. I was actually just looking into it the other day. Would like not to have to wear a mask when I put them together.
Yeah, it's and then if there's any loose fibers in the air and that it kind of irritates you, whereas you don't have to really worry about that with denim. So that's something
Mhm.
I kind of looked into as well and may use for a future room. So that's interesting. Zach, what about you? Any bottleneck? I guess
No,
your
no, no,
experience.
no. It's your turn. Your turn, Smolly.
Well, I mean,
Tell us your secrets.
well, everybody knows, my main issue. The whole server, Ruck will like fall on his face, kind of jumping in at this moment. The Audio GD preamp that I have, is possibly, I guess the weak point of my system. So my system is basically a Di20HE or Pi2AES as my source from my PC, or I have direct attached storage, and I have I stream as well, and then that my DAC is done for Terminator, and then my amps are the Elakit TU8600 I just got, and then I got my Pass Power Amp. And then speakers are the ATC SCM7s and NS5000s. So I think my system's not bad, but everybody loves to hate on Audio GD, and I've never really compared the HE9 to any other preamps. So it will be interesting. I'm going to be getting an audio research preamp soon. I think it's actually going to be shipping probably next week. I got an email from them, so that's going to be very interesting. And we'll see. Either way, I don't think I can lose, because on the one hand, I'm introducing tubes into my speaker chain now, and I'm a new tube lover, and so that'll be interesting. But if I don't like the sound, it's going to be easy to sell, and then I can put that money in other places. So it'll be interesting.
Nice.
So what about you, Zach? And your preamp explorations and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I used to I have the Rockner DAC, and I was using the volume pot from that, which is like a digital volume control. And I think it's pretty clear that as you turn that up, you lose dynamics, and especially when you start getting to like the -40, -50s, which I was getting to. So I put in the preamp that was built to match the speakers I had, just because it was an easy choice, right? Like, buy the one that the engineers built for the active speakers you own. So right. I was like, well, it can't be a bad pairing. So it's way better than the digital volume. I tried, going. The problem with the preamp is the gain from the Rockner is pretty high, so I have almost no play in the preamp volume control if there's no if I have 0 dB on the Rockner. So been messing around with that a bit. I still haven't found perfection, but yeah, I'd say right now I'm happy DAC and preamp wise and speaker wise and headphone wise. As I said earlier, I don't really care much anymore and focus on that much. So I'll focus on my speaker problems. Probably streamer, because I don't have any way. Like I use my PC and run it to my DAC sometimes when I'm just using Spotify and stuff, but I'd like to have a way to play music without having my PC on. So looking obviously at the Raspberry Pi, but I tend to that to me is a bit too DIY. I hate the Raspberry Pi interface. I hate Volumeo or whatever. I'm not a huge fan. I have got one coming in next week that I'll play with, but I'm trying to find a standalone streamer. Obviously Rockner makes one, but I've been looking for a year or two to buy one, and none have come up for sale. Like in the last 12 months, none have come up for sale for 230 volt that will ship to Australia. So yeah, probably a streamer of sorts, and then maybe down the track upgrading my transport, because I'm still a weirdo who likes CDs. So I would like to one day buy like a VRDS style CD transport, but that's a long way away because that's a pretty expensive and pretty unnecessary upgrade for me.
I think somewhere Michael Fremer just sneezed regarding your comments about how you love CDs.
I was gonna say the CD situation for me. I have quite a few CDs that seem to be venerable from my dad, because my dad was involved in that stuff back in the day. So I do have the desire to hop on the CD train instead of using like a gaming PC that has a PCIe card that is, only as good. Yeah, I would love to be able to try a good transport for digital, just because I have so many CDs through my dad that seem to be pretty good and seem to be like a decent master on said favorite album of mine that I remember listening to since I was like 5 years old, type of thing.
Oh yeah, no man, you should definitely just check out secondhand stuff. If you can grab like a Wadia transport for probably less than $1,000, as far as an actual source goes, it will smash every PC, every NUC, a lot of those things. Even a lot of the built-in streamers, they all have some level of flavor or warmth, or they try to build something in so it has a sound through filters and stuff like that. But the transports are the cleanest and clearest I've had in the CD transports. I love them. So that's why I'm one day want to own an Esoteric P1, which is like a 2-box insane system, but it uses probably the best transport system in the world. But it's like 30 grand or something stupid. So I'll have to keep save a lot for that one.
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that too with streamers imparting a sound. I had the Lumen U1 Mini with a Keysie's external PSU. It was modded by the dealer, and what I liked about it is that it was very smooth. It was fast. It was reliable. But the sound was a little warmer, and I felt it not as kind of dynamic and detailed. And I compared it to my Di20 HE via USB, and I always thought that a streamer would sound better than kind of some kind of USB reclocking solution from a PC. I said that yeah, obviously a streamer will be lower noise and it'll sound better, but every time I compare it, I always go back to this Di20 HE via USB. So I think that the streamers can have a sound, and I think you're right on that.
Listen up.
I think the current bottleneck in my chain is me. Is my overall experience level, which frankly is dwarfed by pretty much everyone else everybody else in the conversation now. As far as like a piece of gear, it's definitely my amp. It's an SMSL I picked up when I was still in the ASR train. But yeah, I just haven't heard enough other amps to be comfortable spending the amount of money I think would actually improve significantly everything. For reference, I still haven't spent more than like $650 on a single item in my chain. So trying to be as clear on what I want and not spend that much money is where I'm at right now. But I got to hear stuff, which is why I'm excited for Can Jam.
So I actually have something to respond with directly to listener, which is just let me know what I can bring. Because I will, like, far and away, I will see what I can do for New York.
I appreciate it so much, man. Yeah, I'll let you know. But yeah, my DAC is fine, my headphones are fine, my amp is not great, and that's what's going to be upgraded next. But need to hear more stuff.
Okay, so continuing on with we kind of dabbled a bit into sources. So I just want to kind of focus on that for a second. I recently watched one of Kren's reviews. That was his HD 8XX review, and he was pretty down on that headphone. But one thing he said about it was interesting to me, and we had a bit of a discussion afterwards, and I kind of mentioned that I'd like to talk about it on the podcast. He basically said that you cannot really change tuning of a I guess a transducer with your chain. So if you have a different amp or preamp or DAC or your source component, whatever it is, the tuning, the way I interpret that is another way of saying it is the frequency response of the transducer will not change. You can't, correct. Like, so for example, his issue I think was there was a suck out or upper mid suck out or something like that with the 8XX. And he says that it doesn't matter what chain you use, you're not going to fix that. That's the tuning is the tuning, and that's it. And I wanted to know what you guys thought about that.
Well, I hear a lot of people say that with the HD800 line, if you put it on a thicker tube amp, it sort of fills in some of that gap. I haven't really tried that in a while. I would say my current tube amp is more linear and dry, but I don't know. I've just seen a lot of people swear by sticking HD800 and all of its variants on a very sort of warm, luscious, euphonic tube amp, and that it fills in the gaps. I don't know how much truth there is there because I haven't played around with it enough, but has anyone here tried that?
I think if you're listening to HD800 from the amplifier that Sennheiser originally provided with it, you will want to throw it in the bin almost immediately. It's just like it sounded like a tin can being belted with a stick. Like it was just like a face tweeter. It was awful, and I wrote it off completely. I thought, oh, this driver is like people just like this thin, tinny, sibilant sound. Like it's just that's what's wrong with people. I just walked away. I was like, okay. But then I think a few years later, I was at a meet somewhere and someone had the HC800 and then put it on a whole bunch of different amplifiers, some from Cavalli, and it went from being unlistenable to really quite enjoyable. And some of the tube amps actually gave it some weight and some bass and some thickness. Even some of the better solid state amps definitely lifted it well above what the I don't know, the HDV or HVD or whatever the Sennheiser guys sell with the H800. Probably one of the worst pairings of a headphone and its original amplifier that was designed for it. I think everyone has done a better job of that in the future. But yeah, I definitely think that you can change the H800 from being a sibilant tinny mess to being quite listenable, but it's still going to be diffuse. It's still going to be a bit thin and like etched in the mid range and a little bit peaky. Like that peak is never going to completely go away. If anything, your brain will normalize to the peak after a few hundred hours, and then you'll be like less annoyed by it and probably start to enjoy it. But yeah, I think you can adapt things to a degree, but inherently, there will be some level of the signature that is unchangeable in the transducer that is due to its design and its capabilities that you cannot completely change it to something else.
To comment on Crin's original point that the HD8XX does not get better or worse or more favorable for him, like him using different amps, different gear. That does not really change the result of his impression of the headphone. It still maintains its signature. I wonder how much of that is him being able to separate the amp from the headphone.
I guess the thing I'm kind of confused about is like what does he mean when he says tuning? It does tuning essentially mean the inherent sound that was kind of developed, in the process of developing the headphone and the drivers that the designers kind of strived for and ended up on. Is that what tuning means? Can tuning be represented with a frequency response graph? Is that tuning? What do we mean when we say the word tuning?
I would think it's hard to pin down, especially because, well, obviously Crin is, a frequency response measurement guy. But some amps, one right in front of me, in fact, does have measurable roll off in the nether ends of, bass and treble. How much impact that has on the overall listened experience is up for debate, but I would hope it's based more on his impressions listening, because it really doesn't make sense if you're just going by measurements, because amps can, affect that.
Yeah.
Usually they don't if they're designed well, but
Yeah, I just remembered that when I went to a Head-Fi meet, I stuck my HD800 on a tube amp with a Bifrost 2, and it was kind of strange because um yeah, the treble was still there. It was still kind of it can be kind of sharp. So it's like all of the characteristics of the HD800 were there, but the added thickness from the tube amp and the Bifrost 2, it sort of in contrast to hearing it on a fully solid state setup, like let's say a very clean solid state setup, hearing it on a very thick DAC with a very thick amp, it was kind of the difference between like the treble being kind of like ice picks in your ear, perhaps, or like the treble was hitting you in the face with a very soft pillow. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I agree too. When comparing I actually had the Sennheiser amp. I had the HTV 820, and then I had originally the Burst Conductor, and then now the HE9 and the Ellicott. When I compare them, there's a massive difference in the sound, yeah, that smoothness, that flow that you get from the tubes is very pleasing, and yeah, a slight warm shift compared to the solid state amp I have, it's definitely noticeable. But is that different than what tuning is? He did mention that, obviously frequency response, or sorry, equalization can change tuning, or can change the frequency response. You can EQ things up and down. But to me, my understanding was that chain components can have an effect on the like for example, if I have an HD800 on a measurement rig, and I put it on, as Zach was saying, if I put that on a Sennheiser amp with let's say a head amp GSX Mark II and a Sennheiser amp and that kind of thing, versus if I put it on a Deckware Taboo or WA33 with Bifrost or whatever, and measure both of them, will there be a change in the frequency response between those two chains?
If the output impedance is the same or it is controlled, I feel like then you would have a solid argument.
Right.
But do you actually think the FR would be that different, Flux, or would you say I think it would look very similar, but I think it would sound different. I think a lot of people put too much weight in the FR response, and they don't realize that like a tiny difference. Your ears are extremely capable devices and able to discern, from liking and disliking, 5 dB here or there is like massive.
Right.
Mhm.
No, I do I do think that like an amp and a DAC and a whole chain can influence the sound of the headphone. I just think that in Crin's case, this HD8XX situation reaffirms his particular stance that the headphones that he hears on the various pieces of gear, it's not like he loves it any more or any less because of the gear that it's on. He just gets more data points in terms of what it can do. At least that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Now, when it comes to music organization, playing, discovery, the software front end, what are you guys using? What do you like to do in that regard, in terms of, or what do you guys like to have and use in that regard?
I'll go first just to kick it off. I'm just using Music Bee at the moment on my PC if I'm not spinning CDs. To find the music, usually just Spotify. Usually at work, to be honest, the girls just leave like Spotify playlists running, and we let the algorithm just take us to weird places, and we like song. I tell my nurses to like go and like a song. I'll be like working, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, can you go like that song so I can listen to it later? So I find music that way, and then usually just buy it from like HT Tracks if the album's decent, and chuck it on Music Bee on the highest quality I can get. I'll run it over USB because the USB seems to work pretty decent on my DAC. And that's like for me to get to 90%. If I want to go that little bit higher, I'll buy the physical CD, and it gets me to like what I would say is like my 95% enjoyment by having the CD spinning. But yeah, Music B is good. I tried the HP, is it HQ player or whatever that everyone
Yeah,
was
HQ
needing
player.
lately? I'm gonna have to use it because I've got a May coming in, a May KT3 or something, and then everyone's like, "Oh, you have to use the HQ player with it." And I tried it, and I hated it when I opened it because it's like it just gets deep really quickly because you've got like you can do all the filters and everything on the software, so you can just go absolutely nuts with like tweaking. And I try to stay away from tweaking now. Like I want to just sit back and enjoy music, and when you can like change every single filter like a tiny bit, I'm like it's just starts getting clunky for me, and I'm want to change it for every track or every album. But yeah, Music B is simple for me. It works. The ASIO is really good. It's really quick. I get no latency or jitter with it. I like it over JRiver, which I purchased for a few years. I like it better than Fubar. Resonance Play is a really good free one as well. That works quite well. But yeah, that's what I'm using at the moment.
I'll go next, if that's all right.
Sure.
So I'm using Roon for pretty much everything. It's split between Roon and Apple Music. So for my speaker system, I have a Lumen Lumen U1 Mini, and the U1 Mini has AirPlay and it's Roon ready. So I either leave Roon Radio, just let that cycle itself, or I just play stuff in my own library. And Roon is pretty fantastic. I have different zones set up throughout the house, and then if I want to use if I want to do streaming, I can just hop on Apple Music and just play lossless that way. I do know that AirPlay and lossless, I'm not entirely sure if that's what tier of lossless is supported in AirPlay, if it is, but honestly, like when I listen to my music, I can't really tell a difference, to be honest. And then on my computer, I use HQ Player with Roon, and I use that with the Bakun and the Susvara. And that's a really, really fun setup. But I found that HQ Player doesn't work too well in my experience with the Verite closed. But yeah, it's Roon and Apple Music for me.
I guess I can go next if you want.
Yep.
Okay. So at the moment for the discovery process, at least historically speaking, I've been on Tidal and just kind of followed YouTube music reviewers and also certain publications I would read up on or listen to tracks off of radio stations, etc. So for me, most of the discovery is done through Roon, paired with Tidal, and then I tend to just kind of stream an album, a new release, and then I'll let like 5 tracks go on Roon Radio and see kind of where that takes me. If there's anything that's intriguing, then I'll be able to favorite it, listen to the album. That's the other thing. For me personally, I do mostly album listening. I don't tend to do like playlists or top 40 hits from 1 to 40. So for me, when I hear a track, it's I want to see what that artist does on a whole album. Like you have intrigued me, so now I want to go deeper. But yeah, for the discovery process, yeah, it's Roon, Tidal, that goes AES into the DAC. So everything's like synced up with a clock as well. So for me, it's one of the best experiences for discovery that I have gone through thus far in my like audiophile journey. And I really appreciate being able to, like, on let's say like late Thursday night, early Friday morning, like when all of those artists drop at midnight, it's sometimes cool to like let a couple albums play that are new releases just one after another and just see if you like anything. I mean, at worst case, it's like 30 minutes gone.
I can go next.
Sorry, Lana. Flux, what clock are you using?
So it's the at the moment it's the Convert 2's internal clock, that is a word clock for the RME, and then the RME clocks the title signal, or the RME receives the title signal, and then the DC2 is clocking that. So I feel like it's like a really good representation of like artist new releases, like on that release night. That is about at the very end of the recording process for me, because of the gear that I've chosen and because of how I've chosen to interact with said releases.
Got it. Sorry, Lana, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I also use Rune and usually Tidal as well, and I love to just discover new music by letting Rune or Tidal just run its course. Like I'll be listening to something, and then it'll just start playing something else, and I'll immediately just be drawn to it. I've found so many amazing things that way. My issue is that I tend to stick all of this in one giant playlist, and then when I really want to find it again, I'll be like, "Oh no, what was that thing called?" So my organization is terrible. I used to just make playlists because I would be bored and I would have a playlist for every mood. If I was exercising, if I was working, a playlist for when I was happy, a playlist for when I was sad. Oh my gosh, like I have too many, and yeah, I need to organize that better. But yeah, I use Rune or Tidal. My Bricasti has a built-in streamer and it's Rune ready. Um, so Tidal, I don't know how to get it to work on Tidal. I don't think I can, so I've been using Rune exclusively.
Yeah, I not to be a broken record, but I'm also using Rune and Tidal. I tried to fight it for so long just because I didn't want to pay the. I don't have the lifetime. I got in I think too late, and now I'm kind of just doing the monthly subscription. So between Rune and Tidal, like per month, it's not cheap, and I tried to find other ways, but I always got frustrated with other players, and keep coming back to Rune. The interface is awesome, and I just like the organization of it. I like the way everything's laid out. I love the Rune radio to discover things. And so it's I can't I'm hoping one day somebody will come out with something that's better, and we don't have to kind of subscribe to it anymore. But it's just I think they're just way ahead of every other kind of software player, and so it's hard to get away from it. But one thing I like about it also is just the ability to. So I have playlists based on genre. So I have like a jazz playlist, I have a techno playlist, I have playlists, and I like the ability to quickly add tracks from albums, like going into albums, discovering albums, and then quickly adding to playlists. I find that removing songs from a playlist is kind of a bit cumbersome though, and I've kind of posted to the Rune forums if they could fix that. The same way it's so easy to add a track, it would be great from the album view if you could remove it from a track. Like if there's like a little X where it says that, like one awesome feature of Rune is if you're just exploring albums and you come across an album and maybe you don't remember it, but if you look at the tracks and it's in your playlist, it'll say like under the track, like there's a feature where you can turn it on and it'll say, oh, that song, yeah, it says playlist, and it'll show which playlist it's in. So then oh, I know the song, yeah, it's in my playlist. But to remove it, you have to kind of go to the playlist, you have to scroll to it or search for it, you have to right click on it, you have to click remove, you have to click OK. Like there's so many steps, so it is quite cumbersome. So I hope that one day they would just have a little X where I can just hit the X and boom, it's off the playlist, or another button to put it on.
Yeah, and it's little things like that that can keep you on a J River or keep you in the Rune landscape compared to like a particular streaming provider's desktop app.
Right, yeah. I like the Tidal web interface too, or I mean the app, the PC app, I should say. I actually like that too. It's pretty nice. It's pretty smooth, but I think Rune is just better. And also, I have some local music as well on a external drive that's directly attached, so I can integrate everything together. So yeah, it's Rune's just incredible, and so we'll see if anybody comes out with. I think the bigger companies kind of don't see the incentive. The market's small, the financial incentive's not there to really create something that can compete with Rune. So, yeah. All right. We're kind of coming to the end of our time now. I want to kind of end it with Ko's Corner now and kind of portable and IEM discussion. Ko's I'm sure will take it away and enlighten us with the portable IEM stuff. And feel free to kind of, chime in if you have any thoughts on kind of portable stuff, IEMs, that kind of thing. Go ahead, Ko.
Yeah, sure, of course. So recently I took delivery, I should say about 10 days ago, I took delivery of the Elysian X by Elysian Acoustic Labs. And just to make my review pretty quick, it does live up to the hype. It is a very, very, very excellent IM. It's probably the best IM I've heard in a very long time. And right now it stands as one of the top two flagships in my collection. So I did a brief post some time ago about some impressions about it. So let me just pull that up right now. But yeah, for those who don't know, Elysian Acoustic Labs is a one-man shop based out of Malaysia, and it's really just QM Lee. So QM Lee runs the thing. He builds it. He engineers it. He does the whole shebang. And if you want to order a pair, you can go on Facebook Messenger and just message him, and then he'll take care of you. He'll send you a PayPal invoice and all of that. But some interesting news is that Music Tech may be carrying his line of IEMs, specifically the Elysian X. So just if you want to buy from a big dealer, then just wait. I would say maybe a month or so, or maybe just a few weeks. It depends on the material supply that he has. But yeah, you should be able to buy it from Music Tech soon enough. And the retail price is, I believe
6,000.
It's 40. No, it's cheaper than that. I think it's $43.99. Yeah, $43.99.
I just searched Elysian X and I'm getting a website that says 6,000. I don't know.
No. It's
Okay.
called So first of all, it's not up on any website. Like his website is still in development. And you can the only way I only found out about it from a friend, like over IM. So it's really under the radar. You'd have to go on HeadFi or other audio forums to really find out about it. Yeah, the first 10 people got promotional pricing. I was lucky enough to be one of them, but the retail price is $43.99, I think, or something like that. So just really quickly about the Elysian X, three things. If one of these three things interest you, then you may be interested. It's the quality of the soundstage, the treble extension, and the bass. So the soundstage, usually when you have an IEM, a lot of IEM manufacturers, and I'm going to single out Aureolus, Trioly, and a lot of them in that area, what they tend to do is they focus on soundstage width. And the thing is, when you focus on soundstage width, you don't get the appropriate height from soundstage. And when you listen to, let's say, full-size speakers, you get verticality, a lot of verticality. And even if you're in a smaller room, you still get immense verticality. And in this IEM, he managed to balance width and height, which gives a true room-filling sound. Usually with a really wide stage IEM, it sort of struggles to fill in the corners, and it's difficult. This is I think it's the only IEM I've ever used that can manage to fill in the very corners of the room that you're listening in. And QM Lee, he designed this IEM day one with soundstage in mind, which I guess explains why it is a master stroke in soundstage.
How does it compare to the soundstage of like your Susvara or even Verite Close? How does it compare?
I don't know if it's I would say it's the closest thing to an in-ear HD 800S that I've listened to.
I see.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's. I mean, I hate saying that because it's really painting with a broad brush, but it doesn't really compare with Susvar. It's the closest thing I've listened to is the HD 800S. So if you've been looking for an in-ear with isolation that gives you that sort of stage and that sort of like room filling sound, I think the HD 800S is a good comparison for that. Now the other thing that it has is the treble extension. If you read Critical's review of the Annihilator, which is the step down model from the X is the flagship. He mentioned a lot about treble extension, and the X is really a careful evolution of the Annihilator. So it has those qualities. So you get immense articulation, extension, and this contributes to the verticality and the stage of the IEM. And this is quite frank, this is excellent. I would say perfect. And I don't use that word often, but I'd say it's perfect for classical symphonic music, symphonies, cantatas, opera, that sort of music. However, it also works really well with EDM. Somehow this treble really works well with both classical and EDM. It's just fantastic. However, it tends to fall short in areas like jazz. So if you listen to, let's say, a cymbal strike and the cymbal shimmer and the decay from the cymbal, it sort of sticks out. And from my point of view, it dominates the sound. So every time I hear a cymbal being hit, it just gets distracting to the point where I can't really just enjoy this music, and I just look out for that cymbal being hit. So, and this applies to a few genres of music. And I would say that the one weak point of this IEM is that it's not something I would use as a do-all. You would need to own another IEM to complement the weaknesses of it. So this is something you would have in a collection of, let's say, 2 or 3 flagships, which is what I'm trying to do. I think my collection would probably be a Mason Fable Sound, a Mentor Fable Sound, and an Elysian X. That's how I see my collection moving in that direction. And then the third strong point for the Elysian X. So far it's soundstage, treble extension. Now it's the bass. So the bass, it's an actual dynamic driver. It's a Foster dynamic driver, and the way he's tuned it is that it's a bit aggressive. So you get real punch and impact, really excellent with EDM, and you get that wonderful sense of physicality with drums in a classical, or not a drum, and also gong in classical music. It just really, it feels natural to me. I don't feel left like I want more bass. It's just fantastic. However, if you look at the frequency response graph of the the Elysian X, I think, what's his name? Hawaii Bad Boy did a graph measurement of this. You may notice that it's tilted and it has a bit more sub bass boost. And I think personally that it works. And I think this is why I get this sort of satisfying feel from the bass. So if you prefer an IM that is a bit more sub bass and a little bit punchy, and works well with electronic as well as it works with classical, then I think this is an IM that you could just buy blind, because throughout the pandemic a lot of people have had to buy gear blindly because we can't go to these meets and can jams have been shut down for a while. So our sort of tolerance for buying blind has increased. I would say this IAM is probably one that, if you like these genres of music that I've mentioned, you could entertain yourself in buying this set and just knowing that this is probably the best that you can get to. The downside with this piece is that you need really good amplification. So if you don't amplify this well, it's going to come across as bright, shouty, and fatiguing. But if you do amp it well, it's going to be incredibly balanced, which is why I keep referring to the HD 800S. I know people think it's a bit bright or it's a bit peaky, I would say, but I honestly think if you amp it right, the HD 800S, if you amp it right, it just sounds perfectly balanced. I just think it sounds really, really good. And with the Elysian X, you need something which puts out a fair amount of power. So you can't just buy a DAP off the shelf and expect it to work. I would encourage people to use the iFi Diablo. That works really well. iFi Signature works somewhat well. The gear that, if you're looking for a flagship experience, I've compared the Shelling M30 and the DMP Z1. I would say the DMP Z1 is edges out, and I think that comes down to the fact it uses an analog amplifier system through those TI chips. but the channeling M30 is quite good too. So to give you an idea, the DMP-Z1 is in, I think it's high gain, and I am about a third up on the volume pot. With the channeling M30, I'm in turbo mode, solid state, and the volume is around 25 out of 100. And my other IAM, Mason Fable sound, only requires half that, around 12 out of 100. So this requires a bit more power than your regular IAM. But I suspect somebody who has a Hibby R8 may be fine with it. Last notes on it. Yeah, I mean, it's a class. It's honestly, if you're a classical lover, just buy it. It's amazing. And if you don't want to message him over Facebook, just wait a few weeks. I think Music Tech should have it on their website soon enough. And that's about it. I also got delivery of the Melee, the BGG Melee. A lot of folks have asked me about my impressions. I'd say, yeah, if you're looking for a good bassy set, it's $50. Just buy it. It's really good. It's, in my opinion, it's the true successor to the BL03. So if you like the BL03, but you found it muddy and you found it veiled, but you like the bass and you found the treble lacking, just get the Melee. The Melee is a real successor to the BL03. I think Hawaii Bad Boy did a wonderful job with it. And that's about it for me.
Interesting. So that's yeah. Any final thoughts or anything anybody wanted to say while we before we wrap this up?
I was gonna say I do actually have some portable news, albeit not at the same tier as what was just discussed. I just as a fan of the Dynaudio Luna, I just received the Sony IER Z1R. And I look to compare those two, and I'm probably going to need a portable DAC amp that surpasses an Apogee Groove. That's currently my my portable solution at the moment because I don't have a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter dongle.
Has the IAR Z1R deemed your ears worthy?
I've heard it before. I haven't tried it yet. Like it just came in today.
Okay.
So
I really wish I could. And I wish I could have kept that set. It's so picky with the ears.
I've been given a little bit of guidance in terms of what type of fit I should get. And I am comfortable enough with the Etymotic deep fit, so I should be okay doing what is necessary for the Z1R, as long as the shell doesn't get in the way.
Gotcha. Congratulations, you got an amazing set.
Thanks.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. I really appreciate it. It was an awesome episode. And, stay tuned for next episode. We typically do these once a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks. Definitely subscribe to the channel and check out Sonic Visions, the Discord, the forums. And, yeah, thanks a lot, guys. And we'll see you next episode.
Hey, good night. Have a good weekend.
Wish I was here.
Yeah, Nick. What?
Hey, Nick.
Oh, Nick! Wow.
You came in right at the end.
So fashionably late.
All right. God bless you guys. I look forward to listening to the recast.
All right.
Looked like you had a huge turnout in the crowd there in the audience. So congratulations.
Yeah, we got up to 14, so that's a new high, I believe. But there are some bots, so you got to discount those. But anyways.
I pray my absence had not contributed to that.
No. We always want you on the show, Nick. So yeah, hopefully next episode. All right, guys. You guys have a good weekend and take care.
Take care.
Good night, y'all.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
See ya.